Hey everyone, it's Cervante again with Revolver, and I'm sitting here this time, thankfully and luckily for me, with Colin of Amenra. How are you?
Hi, everything okay?
So the seventh Amenra album, the Doorn, is coming out June 25th, I believe.
Yeah,
I think that's the date
exactly.
on Relapse. And of course, we have our own exclusive little Revolver variant. I think ours is translucent gold, and you can get that at shop.revolvermag.com. I'm curious, what made you decide this time to kind of do the entire album in Flemish as opposed to kind of this like mixture or a blend of like languages you've done before?
Well, we've written this album in a very unconsciously. Like we weren't really realizing that we were writing an album. We were really like writing music for events that we were asked to do here in our country. So we were asked to like there was like a commemoration ceremony of the ending of the First World War, and then there was this a fire ritual that we had to create for the inhabitants of my city here, and things like that. So I knew that the people who were going to be there spoke Flemish, and that kind of made sense to start writing in Flemish to have a direct line to the people who were there. And but I already started to getting some more affinity with my own language and music, because with the last album we had done, Mass 6, I already had some Flemish poetry in there, and we've always been jumping around languages, because we believe that the music that we write is doesn't have a specific language to tell its story. That's the idea.
Oh, that's beautiful. When you normally write poetry and stuff, do you typically like when it's just you, do you write in Flemish or do you write in English?
A little everything. There's this weird thing about languages that you have this. If you have one sentence, like a random thing, whatever, and you translate it in different languages, you always have one language where it has more depth or poetic value, or it does the trick more than in the other languages. So I try to like look for what language that is, and then I try to use that one for that specific story or that specific theme or whatever.
How many languages do you speak?
Like three and a half, something like that.
What's the half?
The half German is the half, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see. I like that. Three and a half. I'm gonna start
Yeah.
using that now. I
Yeah.
speak one and a half.
That's good. So the half means you can manage.
How did y'all go about making the decision to bring Carl from Oathbreaker and vocally? Because I feel like she's in throughout the album. But was that
Hmm.
something that since you were writing these songs or you were doing it for the event first, did you even have in mind that, oh, if we were to put this to an album, we would want like another vocalist involved? Or how did that process come about?
The idea established itself more at the ending of the writing process. So for the album, it was pretty much Leonard, our guitar player, who really pulled the chariots on this album. He had the most coming out of his hands, and he wrote the most for this album. So that's also a reason why he was in a band with Caro for several years. That's one of the reasons why we kind of suddenly had the idea like we should ask Caro to join us on this one. Also because she's been living in the States for a couple of years now, so we miss her, and we had been touring a lot together in the past, and it kind of felt like the ideal situation to work together on this one, and so me and Leonard flew over to the States, and we did her vocals then. So yeah, it's nice to work together with such talented people, and it gives you more possibilities in your music, and there's an extra layer or an extra texture that you can bring that you normally don't have, and it feels like having a secret weapon.
Are there any other vocalists or really any other, I guess, musicians in general that you could see Amin Ra collaborating with maybe on the next album or in the future?
I mean, yeah, there are probably like a zillion musicians that I think that it would make sense, but It's hard to say. I mean, the thing is, it's also important that the person behind that talented musician feels like a right a right person to connect with, and because if you create something together, you carry that thing with you for the rest of your life. So you really want to do it with someone that you want to be happy with the result, or you have a warm, good feeling about the corporation. So it depends. I mean, it's hard to say. There are, obviously always like bigger names that you think could be interesting. It would be nice to have Beth Gibbons on port from Portishead on board at some point, or Warren Ellis from the Dirty Tree, or the Bad Seeds on board. I can imagine that sort of stuff would be amazing. But I mean, yeah, I don't know them as human beings, so.
When I listen to other Amenra albums, I feel like common things that come up are like spirituality, pain, like confronting pain and accepting pain and things like that, right? But when I was listening to the Doorn earlier, I didn't necessarily think about like pain that's already happened to me or like living through that. I kind of just thought about my general frailty as a person. So I'm wondering, like, when you happen to be writing these songs for that event, like, what kind of like theme or message you were trying to put into them?
The thing is, the difference between the older albums, like the Mass albums, and this one is the relationship between the listener and the musician or the creator is different. Like whereas in the past we pretty much wrote these albums as a direct result of own traumatic experiences in a certain moment in time. So we really decided then, when we had enough shit that happened to us, we really actually had something to talk about. So that's the moment where we decided on writing an album. So that was a very conscious happening. It was really, let's write an album. And now with this, it shifted. Whereas the audience or the listener in the past was more of a witness to our story. We kind of allowed people to look inside our heads, and allow us to witness our vulnerability at times. Whereas with this writing the album, I knew it was going to be for one of those rituals and those gatherings. So the spectator or the listener becomes an active member of the conversation. I really addressed the people who were there. I addressed them instead of addressing an unseen enemy, or whatever it is that I'm yelling at. So it shifted the dynamic, and it's more like it became a story of us all, instead of us telling the story of the band or the band members. So it has more oversight. The voice that is singing and speaking on this album is more something that has oversight and tries to talk to you and kind of take you by the hands and kind of guide you through wherever you need to go to.
But then that's also interesting too, how with the mass collection of albums, then how I guess it was like how you say it was written more from like, oh, we're telling the audience or the listener or whatever about our experiences. But I still feel like when you played like on stage, you perform those songs live, as a listener, as a fan, or someone in the audience, I still felt like I was right there with you, like you were still holding like my hand through the experience, you know what I mean? So I wonder too, like whenever you're able to perform the songs from this album live, how that might change the dynamics between you as the performer on stage and insert any person in the audience, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I guess also
yeah,
on top of the fact that there haven't even been shows in like the last year and a half anyway, just how that's
yeah.
even gonna be.
we try not to think about it too much in that sense that we don't try to analyze like how are we going to bring these songs live. I mean, we don't really. I don't mean we don't want to sound make it sound bad, but we don't really care about that in that sense. We'll see how they will fold out when shows start. But we have played them live before these songs on these nights, you know. So we have the and there was indeed more. I was more facing the audience and really talking to them, but everything was set up in that way that the visual element of these evenings was the fire, for example, or was uh, uh, a dance, a contemporary dance piece or stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, yeah, it might shift, but in essence, I mean, I'm talking about a lot of change and a change in dynamic and the difference between this and that. But in the end, we're doing the same thing again, you know.
How does it feel to you to be kind of like, like people see the suspensions like the two or three times you've ever done that on stage or however many times you've done that, and like they go into it kind of expecting that type of a thing. Do you feel like that kind of like puts you into this weird like box as an artist when that's just something that you kind of do as an individual? It's not necessarily like a part of the band, or is it a part of the band to you?
I am a part of the band, so it becomes a part of the band at some point, you know. But I mean, people need boxes and people need expectations, and they're because they're used to that, you know. So I don't mind. I think it's funny, you know, that people are uh, so easygoing in their thoughts, or you know, don't give it enough thought sometimes. Um, I don't know. I think the people who expect that are probably not really understanding it fully yet, you know. I mean, expectations aren't really, that's the worst thing that you can do, have high expectations. I think that's the worst idea ever. If you want to be disappointed, that's the thing you want to do. But no, I mean, we don't want to make it a gimmick. Same thing with the fire rituals that we did. And if we have rituals going on, or we have the suspension thing that we did, or whatever, I mean, if you would repeat that thing, you would just kill the idea. I mean, it's not why you do that. It's not a name to entertain people, or you know, show people a good time, or fill in expectations of outsiders. I mean, it's either you're a witness to the moment or you're not, and you might witness another moment at some point, but when that will be, who knows, you know.
What's the most, I guess, extreme or like shocking thing you've ever witnessed?
A lot of things. I mean, most shocking thing was probably my father dying in my hands. That was quite intense. Uh, I mean, that definitely formed the rest of my life, and also my how I filled in my part in the band. Uh, I don't know. Shocking things. That's pretty tough. What's the most shocking thing you have seen or you have encountered? It's kind of a wild question, or a hard question, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's harder than you thought, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I guess it also depends on like an individual's like their version of shocking or extreme or intense or whatever, you know what I mean? Because like to some people, like the ones who may go to an Amenra show expecting to see you hanging from hooks, like that's something that's shocking to them. You know, but to me, that's like, oh, okay, cool. You know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
it depends. Yeah, for some people it's shocking, and for other people it's liberating in a way. You know, it has poetic value of it. You know, it has aesthetic value maybe, or something. I don't know. Yeah, you have different ways of filling in things. You know.
So instead of thinking of like the most like extremely bad or negative thing maybe that or shocking thing that you've ever experienced, what's the most joyful one? The one that brought you the most happiness, and how, if at all, have you tried to like replicate that feeling again?
I think the older I get, the more appreciative I come of things I have, and the more grateful we are. I'm trying to think of one specific situation, but it's hard to say. The obvious cliche answer is obviously your kids, and whatever they do, kind of makes you proud and whatever, and has a certain warmth and love that comes from it, obviously. But um, the happiest. That's a tough question. It's I'm not the kind of human that emphasizes those kind of moments or highlights them. I tend to forget those easier than the other parts. But I think being able to spend all that time that I can with my fellow musicians in the band, and the adventures that we live on tours and just spending the time together, them helping me out when I need it, and the other way around makes me very happy to have that aspect in my life. So overall, I mean, I've been I've been playing in this band with those guys for over more half of my life now. So, and I'm very grateful for that. That it's still a story that has no end, that is in sight. So that definitely brings a great amount of joy in my life, next to my family, obviously. Yeah.
Well, then how is this I guess pandemic been for you then? Because I'm not sure if you were able to like kind of quarantine with I imagine you're with your family, but I don't know if you were able to see any of your bandmates like in person, if y'all are in the same pod or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same pod, I think. I mean, we're lucky that we live super close. We live close by, so we all live like 30-minute drive from one another. So, and we see each other quite a few times a week, pretty much. So, at the beginning, we had these strict lockdowns where you couldn't really semi leave your house for a while. So that was kind of weird. The first months were we were kind of lost, all kind of locked in our own living rooms and not really knowing what we were going to do with our lives for that time. But then we slowly found our way, and we started, sending some stuff hands and forth, and then we could rehearse again, or we did rehearse again. We probably couldn't yet, or we weren't allowed yet, but we did. Um, so yeah, we really continued working and seeing each other and helping each other out wherever we could. Yeah, and we did some shows like in between. I think it was last winter we were able to kind of sneak in some shows. It was allowed then. Yeah, and then I do some shows with our guitar player, like small scale things for a lot limited amount of people, and we try to find our way to do our thing still without compromising too much.
Well, so then if you were still able to kind of like play some sets and like do some things, um, did you write any songs that you feel like maybe are kind of indicative of how you mentally were feeling during this whole time?
I think it's definitely snuck into one album that we wrote in the last year and a half, or in some of the lyrics. But that one still needs to get released. It wasn't an Amenra album, but yeah, it'll definitely leave its trace, But then again, I mean, with Amen Ra, it's solitude and being alone, and lacking human warmth around you is already a part of pretty much every album that we have written. I mean, it's a part of what we write about all the time. So in a way, that's why it was important for us to release this album now in this period and not wait until the period was over, because it kind of it's meant our music is kind of the soundtrack to those feelings and to that sentiment. So It'll definitely sneak into things that we have made throughout the last year and a half. That's for sure.
So since that's what like Amenra is about musically as a band, what do you seek out in like the other artists and the other bands that you as an individual listen to?
Probably the same thing as every human being that looks for something in music. But I mean, if for me, I mean, I wanted to evoke emotion. It needs to kind of light a fire inside me in that sense that you look for an emotion that you long for in that moment, and that can be everything. I mean, that can be a vulnerable singer-songwriter song, that kind of touches you because you feel that way, because you feel blue or whatever that day, or it can be an aggressive hip hop song that shakes you up and makes you want to yell along to the lines with. Um, but I think in artists, I look for integrity and I look for passion and I look for the sense of necessity. The kind of it doesn't matter what style of music, but I need to feel like they're really singing from a place that it's not a task for them. It's not a means to gain money. It's a means to live their life almost. I'm looking for natural storytellers that just pour their souls and their truthful stories in a mold of whatever music. So sincerity, honesty. I don't care what style of music it is. Just want to be touched.
Who have you been listening to a lot lately then?
I listen too much to ourselves because I always listen to the projects that we're working on like a zillion times. But I listened to an Irish folk band a lot the last weeks called Lankum. They're amazingly good. They're amazingly good. They have this, I don't know, ancient contemporary style. I don't know what it is, but it triggers something inside me that it comes from this universal place that touches a human being. I think a lot of folk. I think for the moment being, and there's this old like a Dutch folk singer that I've recorded an album with a couple of weeks ago. He just released a split with Will Oldham, like Bonnie Prince Billy. Anyway, I listened to that stuff a lot the last weeks.
I am curious though what kind of hip hop you listen to. So I feel like I saw somewhere how your kids have been like mad into hip hop lately. And so I'm just wondering like what you would throw on, like what your choice is.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who I'm listening to as well. Uh, yeah, a lot of Belgian stuff. Loose and the Yakuza is a woman that is doing a really good job right now. Anyway, yeah. But I used to, I can appreciate, Mob Deep and things, the older stuff, like 90s stuff that passed the review back then.
Okay, just one more question. This is just me being generally curious. Are you going to preserve any more of your body parts for your children?
For my children, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I nailed that one enough for now. Yeah. Yeah, but I like the idea. The idea was, it made sense. I do things that make sense in my head, although they don't always make sense.
And it still makes sense to you now?
Oh, now, yeah, of course. They almost got stolen yesterday. My nipples. Yeah, they were a part of an exhibition here in Belgium, and the
Hmm.
exhibition ended I think 2 days ago, and then they were cleaning up everything, and then they broke into the it was in a church. They broke into the church and they moved shit around and they stole stuff, but they didn't take my nipples, so I'm very happy. I could have lost them.
Yeah.
That would have been so fucking sad, man. The whole idea of the damn thing. So now I think I'm gonna put them in a vault or something.
Yes, you gotta lock them babies up.
Yeah, I mean, I only have two of them, so that will be extremely sad.
Well, on that nipply note, thank you so much for talking to me about the
Thank
most
you.
random things. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. Thanks.
yeah. So once again, the Doorn's out June 25th. This is Colin from Amenra. It's been awesome. And I hope that actually I get to talk to you again soon, and that your nipples stay safe.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah.